Hello and welcome to another Hero Camper owner video. In this video I'm going to take you through the electric setup here in my Hero Camper Ranger Columbus edition. I'm going to talk to you about the batteries I have, why I chose that battery, some of the additions and changes I've made to the electrics here in my Hero Camper. So let's roll the intro and then we will get into it. Okay, so before we go inside, a key component of the electric setup for me on my Hero Camper Ranger is this flexible solar panel. So it's 150 watts. It is configurable as an extra item, but as part of the Columbus edition, it comes kind of pre-installed. The wiring just comes down here and then into the inside sleeping area of the Hero Camper Ranger. So let's pop inside and show you where it all gets wired into. Okay, so when inside the Hero Camper Ranger, this back seating area pulls down. There's more storage behind that, and I've covered that in the kind of internal sleeping area video. But if we pull this one down on the left hand side, we will see this is where the majority of the electrical gubbins is for the Hero Camper Ranger. So let me take you through what we can see in here. So just over here you can see this is where the cables come along and run in all the way down here into this ePIVA MPPT solar charge controller. So there's various information that you can see on this screen. The screen actually isn't that great. It slowly cycles through the load, how much PV generation is happening. So you can see there 0.1 amps, 14 volts. So it just keeps on cycling through there. So 3.6 kilowatt hours coming from the solar. So this actually works really well. So because it's MPPT, it really can maximize the solar generation, especially if it's overcast or anything, which is absolutely perfect here in the UK. As standard, you'll see the wiring, as I mentioned, comes through into here and wires into the solar piece. This particular controller can take more than one panel. You just got to check that the panels that you're using are going to work with that. So I do have a secondary panel that I've wired in, which we spoke about in a moment, and then you have the main wiring here into the battery. As you can see here, there are blade fuse holders here for going into the electrics as well as coming in from the solar panel. In there are standard blade size fuses, which are 20 amps. And you can see here this load connection isn't normally wired up by Hero, but I've wired in an additional cable off of the load just over here to this 12 volt 6 amp cigarette socket, and that's so that I can charge things in the back of here, which we'll cover off in just a moment. So relatively easy to wire in. I did it off the load mainly because I didn't want to mess with any of the electrics configured from Hero and just kind of keep things as stock as they can be. Down here you can see I have the standard 30 amp hour lithium battery. The main thing with lithium batteries is obviously they weigh a lot less than the normal batteries that tends to be in caravans and what have you, and you can maximize most of the power from this. So like normal batteries, you only can use about 50%. You can use 80%, maybe a little bit more with these, and kind of not ruin things. It's really helpful with the weight. One thing to keep in mind if you are speccing up your Hero Camper and you have an electric vehicle, keep in mind that your ball weight, it tends to be a bit lower than an internal combustion engine car. So even though you might think you want lots of batteries, remember all those extra batteries are going to add extra weight here in the front, which obviously is where most of the weight is going to be on your ball hitch. So keep that in mind. I only have the 30 amp hour battery, but so far every camping trip we've been on, regardless of the weather, we've stayed off grid the whole time, and this battery works really well. So we've had lights on, we've had iPads charging, Nintendo Switches charging, internet being run, all sorts of stuff, and for us it's worked really well so far on this 30 amp hour battery. So for me, I'm happy I didn't buy anything bigger. I can buy something bigger if I want to and add it in, but again, just work out what you think your usage is going to be. And we also have the compressor fridge on all the time as well, and again, not have to plug in to grid power. So I mentioned about another solar panel, so I will put a little picture up on the screen, but here you can see I've wired in an Anderson connector, which is a standard type of connector that
I can then have this kind of going out through the window, and it kind of just comes back into here. There's another blade fuse holder that I've put in for that, so that I can add an additional solar panel. The main reason for adding that extra solar panel is basically, obviously when you've parked somewhere, it may not necessarily be in the sun, or you may not be in direct sun. So if I need to, I can get my extra solar panel out, which is a Jackery Solar Saga 100, so a 100 watt panel, plug it in and then put it in direct sunlight to again help charge up the battery. I've only ever used it once just to make sure it works whilst camping, and it did. But actually this MPPT controller and that solar panel on the front of the Hero camper worked really well, and even in not very good light, which is quite common here in the UK, it's been able to kind of supplement and keep things charged. And you can even see over here, we have dropped down a little bit because I'm on my drive, but I've only ever had it come down fully to the red once, and again the batteries are still working fine, and that was when the weather was really bad on a 3-day camping trip. So let's kick back to looking what else we've got in the electrical section here. Okay, so this little black box here is where the external grid connection comes in, so 240 volts here in the UK. That feeds in to the main kind of fuse holder here, which is conventional RCD that you might have in your house. So if that trips, that's one of the first things to check if things aren't working properly. And this all plugs in to like what looks like a conventional European socket and kind of brings all this stuff together. Here you have the buzz bar. So again, all things are nicely labelled here. Unless you know what you're doing, probably don't mess around or any of that stuff. But most of those things all connect into this CRS17. So inside of here is, I think it's about 8 or 9 20 amp mini blade fuses. So to keep some of those spare, I have some just here in a bag, if I can show you those. I keep spare fuses in case we have anything pop whilst we're on holiday, so that's easy to get off. Take these 4 little nuts off and you get access to that. So that's where basically all the main fuses are coming for all of the electrical outlets, both for the lighting and the sockets and everything in the camper, which we'll look at in a moment. Then up here we have the battery charger. So this is just a 10 amp charger, so obviously this is a 30 amp battery we have in here, but I'm restricted to 10 amp hour charging. This one works with lithium batteries, which obviously is important, and again I've had no problems with charging rates or anything when at home, and the couple of times I have charged from the grid to do testing and stuff. So again, no problems whatever with that. And then right at the top here we have the DC to DC charging converter. So when I'm kind of connected up and hitched up on the car, this will also enable charging of the battery whilst we're driving along. Okay, so one of the other things I've added is this MT50 controller. So this basically connects directly into the EP, the solar charge controller, but gives me much better access to the information about how the solar is performing. So I kind of like solar performance stats and things. So this is bigger than I thought it was, which is why I've put it here. I was originally going to put it in the kitchen, but you can see here right now. So in terms of solar performance, 14.4 volts, current 0.1 amps and 1.2 watts being generated, and we're in the shade here right now, so I don't expect it to be that good. But if we go through, we can see temperature status of the controller, so everything looks like it's normal there. See current load, so again this would relate to the load coming off of this load section here, nothing to do with the load coming from the battery. So you can see nothing happening on there right now because there's nothing plugged in. But I like the fact that this is clear to see, all lights up nicely so you can see it at night, whereas when this lights up it's very difficult to see what's on screen, especially from an angle like up here. So if we look through what else we have on here, more information about what's the current state of the battery, so 13.1 volts, 0.1 amps, etc, etc. So you have the lights on in here, current date and time, and then these are the things that I like in terms of stats. So I can see each day how much energy we generated, how much energy we generated in the current month, and the total so far. So again, this is a really efficient electrics in the camper, so it doesn't really need a lot of generation. And obviously if you've got solar generation but you're not using anything, it basically all gets absorbed into the heatsink, so you don't see any generation on here. But yeah, works really well. So the other things that are in here that I've added myself, not specific electrics, but I kind of link it all in here. I have this storage container from IKEA where I keep all my charging leads and adapters, also a little mini Ryobi inverter. So all my electrical stuff is in here. I know where to find it when I want it. Then just up here we have a small internet connected device. So basically it's got a little SIM card in there, so when we are away off grid we can have this MiFi working to create a wireless access point for us to share the internet. And this other one on the left is a new addition which I have not fully tested yet, but at some campsites you can pay for internet if the Wi-Fi, if the the cell phone reception isn't that great, and this will take that internet connection from the campsite and then broadcast it around the camper. Because basically what happens sometimes is the campsite, you can only have one device connected to it. So this one device connects to it and then broadcasts it, so the kids' laptops and switches and iPads can connect to the internet without any issues. So that take care of most of the electrics that are kind of in the camper. We'll just have a quick look around the inside. Again, this has been covered in other videos. So we have lighting, LED strip behind this the seating area and to the top of the cabinets as well as underneath the cabinets. They are controlled from this kind of master switch just over here, so with this little kind of backrest section. I've put a little glow in the dark ring around it so I can easily see things in the night time, how to turn on the lights, and it's all kind of married up to this Hero Camper main controller, which speaks back to that kind of fuse box behind the seats that we saw there. And these light switches, little light switch module, that's one here and one in the kitchen area, are all wireless back to this. So if ever you have some issues, it's either going to be that the two little watch size batteries in here run out, or it's lost pairing to this device, so you can just easily repair those. And again, on these controller, it shows you the current battery status. You can switch it into night mode so things stay on, but you don't have the lights keeping you up at night. And ability to turn the fridge off, as well as seeing the current water level. In terms of other power, so in here we have one Euro socket with a UK converter in there. This only works if we're connected into grid power. If you did decide to get an inverter in your Hero Camper, then that is an option from Hero Camper, but it won't mean that these grid connected sockets work. You'd have to do additional wiring to be able to power the internal sockets from the inverter. That's something that you'd have to take care of yourself. Then we have this dual USB socket here that gets powered from the 12 volt power supply, and then up here we have a control panel for my 1.5 kilowatt heating system, which we will cover in a separate video, but again that only works when we're connected to the grid. In the kitchen area, similar kind of story. We have one of those control panels, as I mentioned, for the lights. Then there are two grid connected plugs, as well as a 12 volt cigarette adapter for, again, which will run off the battery for powering and charging USB devices, that kind of thing. And then underneath the kitchen worktop in the middle behind the fridge, again, are two grid connected sockets and a 12 volt socket, which I have the fridge connected into all the time. So that covers off the electrics, I think, pretty much here inside my Hero Camper Ranger. I hope it's been helpful, giving you a bit of information about what's kind of in here, how it works, and how all the things fit together, and then obviously help you make some better kind of purchasing decisions when you're configuring your Hero Camper or your Hero Camper Ranger. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. If you like this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and liking it. It really helps both the video and the channel get recognised by the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing and pressing that notification icon for more Hero Campery type related videos and information. So until the next video, take care and bye for now.